How are you in?
How are you doing?
How are you? How's things?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
All good, all good. How was your day today? I know you had that thing with Westlife.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's Zoom is the big thing nowadays, isn't it? So we had a kind of like up to date kind of meeting and kind of I guess well not really planning much because there's nothing happening. So it's kind of more waiting to see what can happen in the next kind of month or so. Sorry, fix this camera. Hang on a second. There you go. I'm out in the
The
garden. I was
sound is
expecting
a bit freaky.
I was expecting good weather, but it's not happened, has it?
No, well, today was all right.
I'll just hold it. There we go. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's my headphones. Hang on. Try it now.
What about now? That seems a
Yeah,
little bit clearer.
yeah, maybe it was my headphones. They're not,
No
they're not,
worries.
top, they're not top of the range like yours, you know.
These are actually my wife's headphones. I borrowed them from her, so
Yeah, well, the sound's much clearer now anyway, so we're good in that sense.
good stuff.
Well, I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but obviously we're a football fan page, and you're a massive football fan, and you're a former professional footballer. So do you want to talk me through kind of your professional football journey and who you support and all that type of stuff from an early age? I suppose take it away.
So early age football was everything to me. Growing up, I grew up in Baldoyle in North Dublin. So it was everything from playing in the garden with my dad as a kid to playing football on the road with my mates. And that's really where I guess love for football developed for a lot of young lads. Probably still is a little bit. Man United fan all my life. My first memory of football would have been '85, the FA Cup final when Norman Whiteside scored an amazing goal in Wembley on Neville Southall. So that was my first ever memory. I was 7. And then the year after that was Mexico '86 and Maradona's handball and obviously the great goal and great tournament. My favourite team then was Brazil because Ireland, obviously we didn't qualify. And the love from football kind of continued from there. At 6, I went to home farm mini leagues and that was brilliant. We got scouted then to play for home farm and ended up playing 10 years, 11 years with home farm. I actually played from under 7 or 6 under 10 for 3 or 4 years because that's how it worked then. There was no underage, kind of small sided games or anything. So yeah, play a home farm for 10, 11 years and then St. Kevin's Boys for a year before I signed for Leeds United.
And how did the move to Leeds come about? Because I seen that obviously I commented yesterday on the picture that you put up there the squad and you were 16 years old. So how did the move kind of come about? And then talk to us about that day where you robbed the team sheet.
Yeah. So like any young lad, we were, you want to play. If you play as much, if you're training 3 or 4 times a week, you want to play at the highest level. And England to play for Man United, for example, was the dream. To play for Ireland and World Cup or even, to represent your country was always the dream. Then from about the age of, I guess, 12, 13, 14 is when we all start getting scouted. And I had done a FAI goalkeeping course in the AUL and Neville Southall had taken it. And he seemed particularly interested and he was talking to my dad quite a lot. And there was rumours of me maybe potentially, kind of gone over to Everton on trial. And then Leeds United came. There was a Leeds United scout called Paddy Hilliard, who's sadly not with us anymore. He passed away. But Paddy sent myself, Alan Mabry, Steve McPhail, John Butler, and Damien Lynch pretty much all over within a year of each other. Ian Hart had gone the year before us. Tony Grant, Al O'Shea had gone a year before us as well. And Gary Kelly obviously was there a couple of years at that point. So yeah, it went from there. I went on trial with Leeds in June '94, just during the USA '94 World Cup, and myself and Alan Mabry, and we did 2 weeks pre-season training. And from there, I went to Derby County on trial, and some other clubs kind of sniffed around, but Leeds were offering a contract. And when that happens, you're kind of half fearful that, as they said, they didn't want to get into a Dutch auction, so you're nearly fearful that they'd pull out of a deal or something, or they might not, they might change their mind. So we agreed terms with Leeds, and I left and went over there of June '95.
And how was that, considering you were so young going over? What was the thoughts behind your family for you going over?
Well, I think I like I said earlier, the dream is to be a pro footballer. So the opportunity to sign for a Premiership club at that point, Leeds had won the First Division title just before the Premiership had started in '93, I think it was. So Leeds had won the First Division '92. This was only 2 years later. So this would be equivalent to today going over to sign for Manchester City or Chelsea or Manchester United, for example. Nowadays when you speak of signing for Leeds, sadly and unfortunately, people look at it like, I don't know, like a lower kind of League One or a top League One club or a Championship club, should I say. Whereas Leeds is one of the biggest clubs in Britain. But anyway, it was a dream come true. But obviously, I had to have left school, and that was a big problem, leaving school. My mum really didn't want me to do that. My dad was kind of like, this is a huge opportunity. So I promised my parents that if it didn't work out, I'd come back and sit the leaving cert in time, which when it didn't work out, I did do that. So thankfully, I got that under my belt a couple of years later. But I mean, the carrot that big clubs dangle at that point, whether it's money. I mean, my signing on fee was 10 grand, I think. And, this was 1995. I was 16. I think my wages was 250 quid a week, year one, 300 year two. And this was without any expenses. Like digs was taken care of separately by the club as well. So this money was mine. This was like, I've just left school and I'm rich. You know what I mean? This is my mates are doing the leaving cert and I'm rich, in relative terms. So it was amazing. But more than that, it was the opportunity to be a pro footballer. And that was, at that point, all the hard work starts then, but it was all the dreams come true.
Yeah, but as you said there, I think the hardest part is when you're in the digs. It can be a very lonely place. I did a lot of interviews with players over the quarantine and just saying how the digs can be the hardest part when you're over there. You don't have anybody around. I suppose it's a bit easier now because there is social media and you can FaceTime people. But obviously back then that wasn't the case.
I think that must make look. There's a lot of negatives to social media. Don't get me wrong, a huge amount. But I also believe in there's many positives, and I think in that situation, being in contact with people regularly, being able to, as we're doing now, whether it's Insta Live, FaceTime, WhatsApp messages, text messages. Like back then, there was no mobile phones. We were all working off a payphone, which meant you changing some of your money into pound coins and putting it into the machine. Also, it meant waiting on the phone to be free. And with, the likes of in the digs, for example, there was me, Harry Kewell, Alan Mabry, Steve McPhail, a guy called Lawrence Davis, who was Welsh, and even some of the English lads who were from Middlesbrough or London, or all living away from home effectively. Everybody looking to get the phone. So nowadays, if you're in the team, you're texting your mates or your parents, going, played well or dropped today or whatever the case might be. That was just not there then. So I think that must be a lot easier. At the same time, social media brings its own, horrendous stories. So I do think from that point of view, I mean, if my young lads were away now, I think it'd be easier to communicate with them and maybe find out how they were coping with it all. Like back then, if you look at it, there wasn't much contact. Like I played Ireland under 15s, 16s, 18s, but we only really heard from the FAI when you were called up for an international game. There was no real checking up on to see how you were coping. I don't just mean like playing away from or playing football, but how you were coping away from home, like how you were actually settling in, which is a big thing for 16-year-olds,
Yeah, because Terry Phelan actually even said it. He would have been at Leeds when you were there, I think, or maybe just left.
He'd just gone. Actually, at that point, he just gone. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was saying like about that. He got a call up for Ireland, but Terry Setters rang him up the day before Ireland were playing, or the day before they travelled, and he had no other idea other than the fact that if you're not getting on the plane, you're never going to play for Ireland. So he literally jumped on the plane the next day and was in the Ireland squad. But as you say, it's put out now a couple of weeks beforehand, and you kind of have a rough idea if you're in the provisional squad. But back then it was, you're in the squad tomorrow. If you don't travel, you're gone, basically. So it was a bit ruthless back then.
Absolutely. I mean, how it worked for us back then was Leeds United would get a fax to say which players were selected for international duty. And then the manager would come and tell us. Now, in the meantime, the paper might be, or the squad might be in the paper, and your parents would get, whether it was the Press or the Herald or the Star or whatever, and say, yeah, the squad's there, you're in it. Or it might be announced on Airtel, kind of teletext. And that's how it was then, and that doesn't seem, I mean, it's 25 years ago, but for me, it seems like yesterday,
Yeah, no, it would as well. But I know you said there earlier about, the fact that you can say, oh, I had a bad game, or I text them back home. But a lot of people can actually see or hear of reports of games because of the internet. But obviously, as you say, back then, it was a case you'd probably have to write a letter or something, or you'd probably have to wait your turn to get to the phone to say, oh, I played deadly, or you're obviously buzzing to tell your family that you played deadly, or else you'd be like, oh, no, I had a bad game. But either way, they wouldn't know till they heard it from you, whereas these days, it's so easy to get information.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different world. And even, I mean, you touched on me, you know, kind of nicking the first team squad when I was named in that. And like when that happened, I'd signed for Leeds in June '95, and we did pre-season training for whatever 3-4 weeks, and then the season pretty much starts in the beginning of August. And 2 weeks into that, so I was at the club maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks maximum, and so 8 weeks out of school. And Mark Beanie, the reserve keeper, had been sent off in a reserve game. John Lukage was the first team keeper, and he was obviously in the squad. And they called upon me then to travel down for that game, which was against Southampton in August '95. But even then, to be able to tell my parents, it was talking about calling on a payphone. You know, I remember calling just before I left the digs to meet up with the first team squad at Ellen Roads before we travelled down. And then I remember calling them from the hotel in Southampton when we got there, which was probably 6 hours on a bus down from Leeds. And then I was rooming with Andy Cousins. And like now, I was talking to Andy on Twitter about it yesterday. Like Andy ordered room service, ice cream that night, and ended up paying the bill. I always tell Andy, like, you know, he bought me ice cream on my only first team away trip. But yeah, even that, like, you know, it's you look at it now and it's all different. It's all so much different. But when I was called into that squad, that was just, I mean, to be in a Premiership squad at 16 was, and it was by default, I know, but it was incredible to travel down with the likes of Gary Speed, Gary McAllister, Gary Kelly, Tony Yeboah, Brian Dean, David White, you know, Carlton Palmer, you know, Tony DeRigo. The list was endless. You know, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and as you say, all big characters as well. What was Gary Kelly like yourself? I know he's a bit of a messer. I'd say he was good crack to be around.
Gaz is a big messer, but he's also got a heart of gold. And I was Gary's boot boy, so he looked after me. You know, he was a good lad, but also loved the Irish. Always up for a bit of banter and stuff, but loved the Irish lads. Would always look after. Like when I left Leeds, Gaz was one of the only lads, funnily enough, that called me in my mum and dad's house and asked me, did I need anything? Did I need boots? Did I need gloves? Did I need money? You know, he's got a good heart like that, you know. And I mean, Gaz was the ultimate success story for a footballer, leaving Ireland and staying at the one club and breaking through at such a young age, and then, you know, obviously representing Ireland at World Cups, etc. I still keep in contact with him. He's a good lad, is Gary, and a great tipper when it came to cleaning his boots. You know, he was the good thing was, though, he used to wear mitre boots, and they were tiny. He wore size 6. So there wasn't much cleaning in them, whereas John Lukage, I cleaned his boots a few times. He was about size 14. So that used to take a couple of hours. But yeah, Gaz is top man.
How did you find the overall experience? Because I know you said that you went over and then you made a promise that you'd come back and do the leaving cert. So what was the thought process, you know, when you're kind of thinking, all right, well, I'm going to go back? Did it kill you to go back?
When you mean go back, go to visit? Or what do you mean? Oh, back home, sorry. Yeah, I felt like, I mean, it's everything I've ever wished for from the age of whatever 6 you train for. You get the opportunity. I mean, football was going to be my life. There was no doubt about it. That's how I thought. That's what you have to think. And all of a sudden, the rug got pulled from underneath. And I ended up going, and this is where I think there's probably a little bit of, well, certainly when I was there, lack of protection for the lads that are playing. Because when I got released, I went on trial with Cambridge and then to Scarborough, and all of a sudden I found myself getting on trains at Leeds and York, Leeds to York, York to Peterborough, Peterborough connected to Cambridge. I mean, I was 18 and I'm travelling around England on my own. And then up north, that was down to Cambridge, and then equally up to Scarborough to play reserve games. I just felt together. They were 4th division teams, clubs, whereas Leeds was Premiership, and I was like, this isn't for me. And that's the difficult part, because, you know, on one hand, you don't want the football dream to die, and, you know, you'd speak to people back home, you know, particularly my parents, and my dad would have been like, oh, you know, don't give up, give it a go, give it another shot, go somewhere else. I guess because my height was always a restriction for me as a goalkeeper, I had that in the back of my mind, and I hated football, if I'm honest, at the end of it. And then I decided to come home. I signed for Shells.
Wow.
Yeah, good lad. And if you remember, Alan Goff would have been first choice. And well, I was 18, 19. Goffey was probably 30, 31 then. So he was, an established professional. I was, an up-and-coming goalkeeper. So Goffey was always going to be first choice. And Damien Richardson was the manager. And Damien said that to me, we'll be on the bench. Yourself and Stephen O'Brien will battle it out pretty much. Goffey's first choice. And then the opportunity to go to Cove Ramblers came up, who were first division, but they needed a goalkeeper. So we agreed that I would continue to train with Chelsea and travel at the weekends to play for Cove. And then I did that basically for that season. And we started off quite well with Cove. We beat Waterford in the opening game of the League Cup 5-0. Then we beat Kilkenny, who were Premiership, and Waterford were Premiership as well. Beat Kilkenny 1-0, and then we in Buckley Park, and then we drew 1-1 with Cork in the Cork Derby in St Colman's. I think we got to the semi-final of the League Cup that year, but our league form kind of dipped, and we started to lose, concede late goals, and by Christmas I picked up an injury. I was out of the squad and out of contention, and then the start of the next year, kind of into January, February, March, I'd had Bray Wanderers had spoken to me through Pat Devlin, because back then there was no, you could sign at any point of the season. It was, people could talk to who you like. And I was kind of all set to go to Bray Wanderers at the start of the next season, and then Westlife happened, so that all changed.
Yeah, well, I was going to get to the Westlife part in a little bit, but at that point you represented obviously Ireland from underage the whole way up. Obviously, your dream then was to play for Ireland, and you said there that you fell out of love with football, which happens to so many players that go to England and come back. They end up hating it. What was it that gave you that kind of that love back? I know, because I know you have a son now who's playing underage League of Ireland now and doing quite well.
It took a long time actually, because I think when I came home, and again, it might be different now to be honest, but when I came home, I've gone from a Premiership club, you're working to get there, and even though the real hard work starts then I came home. League of Ireland was semi-professional. There was a couple of pro starting, the likes of Shells, Shamrock Rovers. We're starting to look, Pats maybe. We're starting to look at pro, to try and go pro. But the rest of the clubs were semi-pro. I mean, so Cove Ramblers were, absolutely, semi-pro and etc. So you couldn't afford a living on playing professional or playing semi-pro football in Ireland without having a job as well. So. Plus the training side of it, you weren't training even at Shells. We were training, I think, 3 nights a week. It wasn't full time. And you do. There's no doubt about it. You dip in form. You can't compete at a professional level if you're not training at a professional level. So, certainly the love that had died for me. I was back home, and I hooked back up with my friends. I was going back to do my leaving cert. And football, although I'd applied for the Guards, I'd done the aptitude test after the leaving cert to go to the Guards, and I'd gotten that, and I was due to wait for the Guards to to be called up, and I kind of thought, well, semi-pro football in Ireland and being a member of the Guards would be a decent living and a good living, and etc. So that obviously changed when Westlife auditions happened, but even for the next, I got into Westlife pretty quickly after that, and I totally just forgot about football. And it sounds strange to say, but because I'd literally played all my life to that point. But I didn't want to play it anymore. I didn't care about it, even though I was a Man United fan and I would always look out for Leeds as well. I didn't care about it. Funny story, about 3 years after that, I'd say about 3, I was in the pub one day, and Westlife had gone, to do what we did. We were pretty successful at the time. And I was home for one kind of random weekend, and I was out with the lads, some of my friends, and we were watching a Premiership game, and Paul Ince was playing for Liverpool. And I remember looking at the screen, looking at the lads going, when did Paul Ince sign for Liverpool? I couldn't believe it, because obviously Ince had been at United, and then he'd gone on, whoever he'd gone on from United, pre-Liverpool, there was somebody in between, obviously. And I was like, when? So it just goes to show, my mind had totally gone to music, and I'd been travelling the world for 3 years, and I wasn't even paying attention to what was going on at even the Premiership level,
Yeah, but see the way you spoke about all the things that you've done, and I look at, is there anything that you're actually bad at? Because you're a singer, presenter, footballer, could have been a guard, the presented shows. Is there anything that you're bad at?
I'm bad at them all. I just get away with them all. I'm not at styling my hair. I'm not great at either. And I think. Well, the women in the comments seem to like it, so that's good. No, I think I'm quite an ambitious person. I'm quite hardworking. So if I do put my mind to something, like I don't really take on things that I don't enjoy. Like I always had a passion for radio. That didn't happen by accident after Westlife ended. My dad was a singer in a cabaret band all my life, so singing was always in the family. I was always up on stage with him. I hosted karaoke's with him. Obviously, the football stuff is that was pretty much all my life. So yeah, I think they're passion projects more than just kind of trying my hand at stuff. I don't really do things like even this interview today. I would do because I'm passionate about football. I enjoy it, and obviously I have a story, I guess. But I wouldn't just do a random interview because if I didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah. Well, see, that was what I was going to ask. That was actually my next question, was just kind of how did you get into Westlife? Because that obviously went on to be a huge success. I mean, the known worldwide, and
Yeah,
successful worldwide.
well, it started for the lads in Sligo. The boys went to school together, and they set up a band called IOU. I mean, this probably story's well documented, but they took it to Louis Walsh, who was managing Boyzone at the time, and held auditions in Dublin. And that fit into just when I was telling the story there about leaving Cove Ramblers. I was doing my leaving cert that summer, and an audition came up. It was advertised on 98 FM, and I decided to go along and sing a couple of songs at it. And Louis Walsh was was helping out with the auditions, and he decided to pick myself and Brian McFadden and a couple of other guys to shortlist for the Westlife auditions. And that's pretty much how it started. And within that would have been June or July of 97, 97. And then it kicked off from there. We went to 98 it would have been, excuse me. And then we all of a sudden we were in the studio with Steve Mack, who is now one of the biggest songwriters in the world. And by Christmas we were touring with Boyzone, and by March we had Swear It Again out, and that was number one. And then I literally wasn't home for months on end at that point. It just kind of kicked off.
Yeah, well, you can see obviously because you were on tour so much and you were doing stuff that you would forget about football easily enough. Especially there's not as much, again, I go back to social media. It's a lot easier now to just pick up a phone and get a result. Obviously back then it wasn't.
Well, that's it. I mean, nowadays there's the apps. You can get notifications if your favorite team scores or your team lineup, hits as soon as it's announced. As soon as the manager, submits the team sheet, you've got it on your phone. It's a different world. But I think as well, I also think I felt hard done by without feeling sorry for myself when football. You give so much to something, and it was all then based on for me, as far as I was told, and the height restriction was a problem for me, and even going to England, Leeds would be monitoring my height, and I'd be constantly comparing myself to whether it was tall goalkeepers, small goalkeepers. I mean, my favourite keepers in the world, and still to this day, I'd always have a soft spot for the keepers who aren't 6'6". 6 foot, 6'1", even 6'1" is, if you look at kind of Casillas, Shea Given, that type of height I think is actually a perfect height for a goalkeeper. You're gonna have exceptions to the rule. You're gonna have someone like Peter Schmeichel who's 6'4" and he's an incredible goalkeeper. But I suppose I don't agree a lot of the time with people just picking goalkeepers on height. That annoys me, still annoys me. And I see it even at a young level. I see it at a senior level. I see it at a pro level. People don't, oh yeah, he's big, he's strong, he's this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, but is he a goalkeeper? Is he good? And that's first and foremost for me. It's very important nowadays. You can play with your feet. I mean, that's 100%. But also, I think even beyond that, or before that starts, you have to be a good goalkeeper. Your hands have got to be good. You've got to be brave. Position sense got to be good. You've got to be fit, agile. And although my height was against me, I was never really caught out in terms of being chipped. I think where clubs felt that I was struggling was the physicality, was, under set pieces. I always remember having a conversation with George Graham when it was being released, with Paul Hart present and Eddie Gray, and they used the example of, if I was to play you this week against Everton in the Premier League, Everton are just going to look and go, right, Nicky or that keeper is 5'10", let's put everything on top of him, whether it's corners, whether it's free kicks, whether it's whatever. And he says, and then you're going to be competing against Duncan Ferguson. And, Ferguson's a monster, as we know. So it's a ruthless industry. And that was the way it was, And so, yeah, I get that. And, when you look at that, then you go, right, that's a problem. But But certainly, if you can cope, I still wouldn't discourage young small goalkeepers, because you look at Barthez, you look at Casillas, you look at Given, and they're
Jordan
all.
Pickford.
Yeah, and funny enough, you mentioned Pickford. During the World Cup, I think it was Dennis Wise a couple of years ago, criticised Pickford for being too small, as did Courtois. And I think it was Courtois, wasn't it, that they said he was too small.
I think so, yeah.
And that really kind of annoyed me, because Courtois is obviously 6 foot, probably 5'6", and straight away I looked and I thought, and I said this recently on a different Insta Live, you always hear too small to be a goalkeeper, but actually, sometimes you look and you go, well, actually, he looks a bit too tall to be a goalkeeper. Now, obviously, exceptions to real Schmeichel, but I always use the example of Messi scoring 2 goals against Chelsea in the Champions League, and Courtois was beaten twice through his legs from 10 yards, 15 yards, and whatever about being nutmegged coming out and trying to make a block, but certainly not being nutmegged from 15 yards. That's unacceptable from a goalkeeper. And I think it was because a big man like him couldn't move his feet fast enough. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, well, the reason I said Pickford is I'm actually an Everton fan, so I watch him most weeks, and people do actually often criticise his height.
Yeah, I mean, but you look at his World Cup he had, for example, with England a couple of years back.
Yeah,
and he was frightening, and England went very, very far, and I don't believe. I mean, it's one thing saying he's too small or criticising his height, but I think people need to show examples. When have you seen Pickford being beaten because he's not tall enough? I would have thought he's quite quick on his feet, quite agile. Where you struggle in departments, you have to make up for in other departments. And I think smaller goalkeepers, Given was sometimes criticised for his height. Shea's not a small man by any means. He was very good at moving his feet and making sure that he was good in the air, brave in the air. And I think that's important. Casillas is another example. I actually think Shea Given is a little bit taller than Casillas. And to me, I don't know how you feel about Casillas, but Casillas is probably one of, if not the best there ever was, So, and that's not to say that you can't get, as I said, 6'3", 4, 5-inch goalkeepers. But when I was growing up, I mean, Peter Shilton, I mean, that's going back a while, but he was about 5'11". Southall was 6 foot, I think. Bruce Grobbelaar wasn't the tallest keeper in the world. There was a lot of keepers that you don't see anymore that were all in and around.
How tall was Neville Southall?
I think Neb was about 6'1".
Yes, there you go.
So, but nowadays 6'1", I mean, you probably get away with 6'1", but Pickford's probably 6 foot, 6'1", maybe
6'2", I think.
Well, there you go. I mean, if you're saying Pickford's too small at 6'2", I mean, that's just ludicrous. It really is.
Yeah, no, I didn't say it. Other people
I know.
Well, see, your son's now playing football and playing at a decent standard. He's at Bowes now. What would be your advice to him in that regard? Because obviously you've gone a similar route there, so you'd know.
Yeah, well, I have 2 lads. They're twins, actually. One's they're both playing for St Sylvester's GAA first off, and then Rocco's at Jay's at Sylvester as well. Rocco's at Kevin's Bowls. So their League of Ireland season was supposed to start in March, and obviously with everything that's happened, and that's kind of not happening at the moment, or I don't know when. No one knows, and that's going to pick up.
Back, yeah.
He's doing well. Rocco started as a young lad. The 2 of them started a home farm because that was where I went. That was what I knew, and then he moved on to Kevin's. Then went to Shamrock Rovers for a few years, and then went back to Kevin's. Good keeper, but again, very young. They're all only 12. He's just turned 13 last week. I would, being a keeper, I'm quite critical, so I would be, training them in the garden and saying, you got to be doing this. But I would focus, funny, because I would always focus on technique. Always focus on technique. For me, and if I was coaching any young lad, hands have to be good, feet have to be good, technique. And that's where all those little drills come into play. But nowadays, the footwork side of it, being able to play from the back is so important. But I also have that argument that midfielders, outfield players don't understand goalkeepers. Goalkeepers will consistently get bollocked by outfield players when a lot of the time you're thinking you don't have a clue. When it comes to goalkeeping. So, but I suppose the advice to my lad is just enjoy it. Having somebody who's worked all his younger life to get away and then have the rug pulled from underneath me and, feel like a failure. I wouldn't necessarily want that to happen to Rocco. So I always say, just enjoy it. You're going to get blamed on goals. That's the job of a goalkeeper. You're also going to be a hero in games, or you're just going to have a boring game. But concentration has to be high all the time. But just enjoy it. I mean, now I think life particularly nowadays with mental health and stuff, it's all about just being happy, you know. And if you enjoy football, play it, and you know, if you're good, work hard at it. But yeah, I think it's important to have that out, to have a hobby like that, and take it on to the next level if you can, of course.
Yeah, well, I know you play a lot of soccer aid and stuff like that. I'll get to that in a sec, but I know your mates with Shay Given and that. Would he be sending stuff to Rocco for you or giving him little tips for you?
Yeah, I constantly every now and again, if you have a video of a save that he might have made or whatever, I'll send it on to Shay and I go, here, check this out. I mean, Shay will have a good chat about it. You know what I mean? And but yeah, I mean, Shay's a good friend actually. So you know, I've sent him plenty of videos of Rocco in action. But again, he's so young. I mean, I looked at loads of training sessions where Rocco and his teammates over the years, whatever club he's been at, and you know, you look across and there could be. I remember one night up in Shamrock Rovers, there was the under, say, 8s right up till the, you know, pretty much the reserves training. And Damien Duff was out with the 15s. And I know Duffer as well. Obviously, I played with him. So I would have had a brief conversation. But I remember just thinking to myself, because I'd been across the water, thinking there's probably.
That's the freezing there, Nicky.
Can you hear me? I was just saying, like, the chances of one of the kids out of that 200 out on the pitch going and playing
Right now.
In England or playing for their country is really, 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 like, it's small, because the chances most of the people who go don't actually make the grade. And there's 100 things that can affect that, whether it's homesickness or, you know, opportunity is a big thing, big thing. And if you look at Shay Given, I mean, Shay was at Blackburn Rovers. He'd come back from Celtic, gone back over to Rovers. I think he was 3rd or 4th choice, and then he got the opportunity at 19 to go out and loan to Sunderland. They needed to keep him. And then all of a sudden, Shay, when he grabbed it with 2 hands, I think he kept something like 9 or 10 clean sheets in the games he was there. Now all of a sudden he's worth millions, and Blackburn put him in over Tim Flowers at the time, you know. And then Shay is now an established keeper. So I think opportunity is a massive thing in football, and you have to take the opportunity, and you need a lot of luck and hard work. Nobody can get
timing and luck as well.
100%. It's a lot of that, and height, obviously, if you're a goalkeeper.
Well, talk to me about, you know, I know you love football, and you're lucky in a sense that you still get to play these soccer aids, you know, getting money for charity and stuff like that, which is great. But as well as that, you get to play against some of the best players that ever played the game. So I suppose in one sense, you still get to live out a little bit of that fantasy that you want to play in these big stadiums against these big players.
Yeah, you're freezing there. Can you hear me?
I've frozen now, am I?
A little bit.
What part did you last hear me say?
Just with the soccer aid, getting to play with some top players, that was it.
Oh, yeah. So basically, I was saying the fact that you get to play soccer aid, you get to, you know, raise money for all these charities, but at the same time, you get to play with some of the best players that ever played the game and some of the best stadiums that you've ever seen. So I suppose in some sense, you get to live out that fantasy a little bit. It's obviously not the real thing, but it's the next best thing.
Oh, 100%. I always say that, like, it's, if you look at my kind of footballing life, I had a real footballing career up till 19 at a pro level, and, you know, been lucky enough to be in a Premiership squad. And then Westlife took off for many years. And then, you know, now because of the Westlife thing, I get, you know, asked to play in Robbie Williams' soccer aid for UNICEF, which, and again, because I'm not English, is brilliant, because once you're not English, you get to play with all the international greats as part of the rest of the world. So, I mean, the list has been endless. I've played in the same team as Zidane, Roberto Carlos, Luis Figo, you know, Ryan Giggs, Pelo Di Canio, Romario, Ronaldinho, Ian Rush. Well, I missed the Roy Keane one. I was out way with Westlife on tour that year, unfortunately. So I played against Roy in a different charity game, but I missed playing with him that year. But yeah, I mean, it's Jaap Stam, Edgar Davids, Kluivert. It's just been, over the last 10, 12 years of soccer aid, Eric Cantona on a couple of occasions, it's been really, really incredible. Like, you know, and I've actually played outfield in a lot of games, and then only in the last 2 I've gone in goal, and I've experienced it all, because I scored in one of the games as an outfield player, and then the one last year went to a penalty shootout. I managed to score or save 2. We won the game. So it's been brilliant. Live at Old Trafford, we played at Wembley as well, and, you know, ITV with millions watching, and it's all for charity. It's one of the best weeks of anyone's life, and even the footballers. I mean, Robbie Keane does it a few times as well, and, you know, even Robbie's saying, at all the things he's done, the soccer aid week is one of the best fun weeks of your life, because you're with all the English lads, all the international lads, and you're living like a footballer for a week. And just as you can imagine, with pop stars and film stars and footballers, hooked up together for a week, it's great fun.
It looks like I've seen some of the videos. I think yourself or Robbie put them up last year, and just looked like great crack on the bus. You haven't sing songs and stuff like that. It must have been after the game. I think you were having a few beers and that.
Yeah, the camaraderie is great, and what's great is we all want to beat England. And what's great for England is they're wearing their 3 lions on their chest, and to them they're playing in the World Cup final, obviously. So yeah, I mean it's a real game. I mean the producers of that whole thing will sit down with the players and say, look, this is I know it's for charity, but it's a real football match. And you might have seen over the years, Edgar Davids had a bit of a run in with Johnny Wilkes, and there's been some tackles flying in. Self and Jamie Redknapp got into a bit of a 2-footed tackle at one point years ago. Like nobody pulls out of anything, and everybody wants to win, and then everybody forgets about it and has a drink in the bar afterwards. So great to be involved. Great that it's for charity, and for me, the fact I think that I've had a footballing background probably gets me on the team sheet quicker than your average celeb, for want of a better word, which is good for me. So but it's, I mean, even through the years I've been managed in the World 11 by Jose Mourinho, Claudio Ranieri, Kane Dalglish. Yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah, but that just sounds like, as I say, it's the next best thing to being an actual player, and the fact that you get to go in and play against. Did you ever get to play with Casillas? I know he's still playing, actually, isn't he? So he probably doesn't get the call.
No, never. I've never met Casillas. No, and he had a heart attack, didn't he, last year? So I don't think he's playing anymore now. I think he's obviously. I mean, he's still young, isn't he? Casillas is probably. I'm 41. I think he's probably about 38 now. Actually, now if he hadn't had that heart scare last year, I'm sure he'd still be playing with Porto. But yeah, he's one of those guys when people say on your list, who would you like to meet? Iker Casillas is one of them.
Well, he's won everything.
Yeah, but it's not even. I mean, that's a great accolade to have. But there's been plenty of goalkeepers that have never won anything that you'd look and go, he was class. To me, I just watched Casillas. Everything about him was first class. I mean, obviously he made mistakes like any goalkeeper, but everything was right. For a keeper that wasn't the tallest, if you watch him, he was making saves that keepers don't do nowadays. He's making a lot of his saves on a 6-yard line from outside the box shots. And that's all about speed of your feet, because I say it to Rocco all the time, soon as somebody drops the head to smash a shot from 25 yards, at that point they've looked to see where you are and they've put their head down to hit a shot, and then it's up to you to steal a couple of yards to close that, to narrow that angle. There's only one in a million, or maybe not a million, 1 in 100 that will feint to hit that shot and then dink you, like Philip Albert did to Schmeichel many years ago, like Messi's capable of, or Ronaldo might be capable of. But 9.5 times out of 10, as soon as somebody's put their head down to shoot, they're not thinking you. They're smashing it. And then if you've stolen 2 or 3 yards, you're making the save, hopefully. And some of the coaches at Leeds, for me, John Burridge, Eric Steele, they always made a point to all of us, which I thought was great. Nigel Martin would have been training with us then as well, where great keeper, great lad. Make the saves inside the goal, as in make a small goal in your head inside that big goal. So if they're putting in the top corner or the bottom corner, you can't be blamed. But if you're saving as many, 9 times out of 10, as much around you as possible, then you're doing your job, And I think Casillas was very rarely beaten around him. Whether it was with his feet, his hands, his head, his body, it was everything.
I think you froze that last bit, but I think I got the gist of it. Would you ever chance your arm in coaching if things got quiet? Say, I know you do a lot of other things, and I'm going to get to that lastly. But would you ever get into coaching? Because I can, just even talking to you now, I can tell how passionate and how much detail you put into it. I think you might make a good coach if you ever put your mind to
it. Do you know what? When Westlife split in 2012, I actually drew up a bucket list of things I wanted to do. And I wanted to get me coaching badges was one. I spoke to a couple of people I knew in the FAI, Steve McGuinness from the PFAI, and I just to ask him how would I go about it and stuff. And the fact that I'd played pro football, I think you can kind of get started quickly. It is something that I had, and I never took up from then. It is something that I had and I wanted to do. but it's time, and now I chose to go down the route of starting a radio show or joining a radio show on 2FM, and then I really didn't have the time. And I think there's a lot of passion there, and I actually do think I could help a lot with the goalkeeping coaching. But you have to be passionate about putting the time in. You know, you have to be, 3-4 nights a week, whatever it is. Kind of coaching at a club. I just don't. Unfortunately, I just don't have that time now, because I'd rather spend that with the ages of my children at the moment. I'd rather spend that time with them and going to see their games and hobbies. And Jay, my young lad, plays piano and plays Gaelic, and my little girl is Irish dancing and drama and everything else. And then Rocco's obviously soccer and Gaelic as well. So it's about getting to their games and their training sessions as much as possible. So to start taking on a coaching role, I can't see where it fit it in.
Yeah. No, I was just saying if things did free up. So what are you doing at the moment? I know you're doing your radio stuff. You've got I think you had a couple of gigs with Westlife, and they're not happening anymore because of what's going on in the world. And then you have to Strictly Come Dancing as well. You're doing that as well, aren't you?
Yeah, so when Westlife ended, obviously I was on 2FM for 5 years, but I knocked that on the head to go to embark on the Westlife reunion last year. So that went brilliantly. We released an album called Spectrum, and Hello My Love was a big hit from that. And we did 53 gigs around the world, which was brilliant. And that all kind of finished up around November last year. Then I hosted Dancing with the Stars, which is strictly in Ireland, Dancing with the Stars. Finished in March. We were about to go on tour again with Westlife, and unfortunately, with everything that's going on, that's all being kind of binned at the minute. And obviously, we'll look to revisit that when the time is right and everybody's happy and healthy. It's a shame for everybody, but for the right reason. Obviously, we cancelled, but we 2 nights in Park of Quaid to do this year. Wembley Stadium we had to do, with another 20 odd gigs in the UK, and then more around Asia as well. So I think we were going to be looking, had everything gone right, we were probably looking at another 50 plus shows around the world. Now it'll be none. I think Wembley is still alive at the moment at the end of August, but I can't see that. Everything else being postponed. I can't see Wembley happening, although at the moment it still is on. So it's really about planning for next year now, to be honest. It's about, I think, pressing reset, like the whole world has, and just everybody trying to get themselves through this now,
And just what are you doing yourself just to keep yourself occupied? I know you're doing a couple of these Instagram lives, and I've seen you. You actually, to be fair, I really like what you did with the Instagram lives and adding people in and just having a quick chat with them. You really made their day. That was a really nice touch from you.
Yeah, well, I think it was just from everybody's the same, aren't they? You're just trying to get through the days, and I think we've been lucky with the weather actually. To keep people have been outside the house, in your garden or on your street, staying away. Obviously, social distancing as much as you can be. So yeah, the Insta lives obviously. Getting some fans on board and having a quick chat with them. Fitness wise, just trying to do little things around the house and a small little gym. Tip over on that. Go for cycles, go for runs within that 2K radius. I think everybody's the same, aren't they? You're just trying to keep your head clear and keep healthy and happy and healthy, and just keep thinking there's light at the end of the tunnel here. This will hopefully be done with soon.
Yeah, well, Nicky, I won't keep you any longer. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. I had a great chat with you and learned a lot that I didn't actually know.
Happy days. And listen, keep up the good work. I've been watching yours as well. The Insta Live's been going well.
Thanks very much. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, okay?
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, that was absolutely class. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm going to end that now.